Okay, good morning and welcome to our info session. My name is Gustavo and my co-worker Robert is also with us. Hey, hello. Hello, Robert.
Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos.
And he will help us by reading all the questions that you write in the chat. Today we have a great topic, how to finance your small business by Ashley LC from US Administration Small Business. Today, the presentation is in English. Please, you must choose the language to Spanish or English, and it will be translated by our talented interpreter, Jessica Dower. Welcome, Jessica. Welcome, Ashley. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And if you want to start with the presentation, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gustavo, and thank you everyone for being here this morning. Special thanks to Jessica and Rob for helping out with the presentation as well. As Gustavo mentioned, let's see if I can get my slide to move here. As Gustavo mentioned, my name is Ashley Lambeth Christian. I know that's a mouthful, so I just go by LC. So feel free to call me that. Just to give you a little bit of information about me, I am the Outreach and Marketing Specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration, or SBA. I've been doing that for about a year now. Previous background includes teaching at the college level, so in the business department for MiraCosta. I also am a serial entrepreneur, so I've opened several small businesses. And I'm super passionate, particularly about business startup and expansion. And so that's a little bit about what we're going to touch on today as far as financing your business and how to get to that next step. So just a little bit of the agenda. This is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about common ways to fund your business. We're going to talk a little bit about bootstrapping. We're going to talk about the difference between debt and equity financing. We'll touch a little bit on SBA loan programs, and then we're going to talk about what a loan package looks like and what does a lender look for. So why do most new businesses and exciting ventures need funding? So there's various reasons why, and one of the big ones is that before you even open your doors, so before you can even make your first sale, you're going to be having expenses, right? So you have to purchase your inventory. You may need to train your employees or go through training yourself or licensing. You'll need to advertise because you want people to know that your business exists. You may have things like rent or leases that need to be paid in advance. And so those are some costs that you may have upfront before being able to even make a dollar. In many cases, when your business starts to expand, buying things like buildings or building real estate or expanding onto buildings that you already have may exceed the funds that a small business has. And so they may need to reach out for some kind of financing for that. There may also be things like lengthy product development cycles that require upfront capital that you may not just have on hand. As an example, one of my students opened a shoe company that it took about 4 years for them to get everything together as far as designing the product, creating the machinery, to even make the shoe, because it's made out of recycled materials. And so that type of machinery didn't even exist. And so you may find yourself in a position like that, where it may take a very long time to get through that product development cycle. So before you start thinking about financing, you have to ask yourself some questions. And so the first big question is, how much money do you actually need? And you want to know down to the penny, how much money do I need and what will I use the money for? So You want to figure out what all of your costs are, what's going to keep you afloat for several months at a time. If you're a business startup, we generally are going to tell you that you want to have enough funding to keep your business afloat and cover all costs for a minimum of 6 months. Realistically, a year is really what you're going to need to get over that first year hump. But you really want to break down what all of those costs are going to be, all the way down to things like cleaning supplies and different licensing, but also, of course, you'll think about the big things like rent and inventory, those costs as well, but you want to envelop those all together. You want to think about what type of funding makes the most sense for my business. So where's the money going to come from? Is a traditional loan the best bet for your business? Is asking friends and family the best bet for your business? Is having someone like an investor going to make a lot of sense for you? And when you're thinking about these different options, you want to consider how much control of your company do you need? Maybe you're thinking about bringing on a partner or somebody to share the burden of running a business as well as to help with finances. So are you okay with sharing 50-50 control? Or if you have an investor come in, are you okay with considering their ideas as well? So consider how much control you might need. Consider what can I offer in return? So if people are investing into your company, what are you giving them in return? So is it a percentage of your business, or is it just that you're paying back the loan with full control and you're just paying them back with a little bit of interest? So what can you offer in return? What do I have to contribute to financing my startup or expansion? So for most loans that you're going after, they're going to require that you're infusing capital into your business. They want to see that you have what we call skin in the game, meaning that you also have something to potentially lose if the business doesn't make it for some reason or another. And so they want to see that you're also committed to this business. You also may have things like fees, upfront fees, so generation fees for different types of financing. You always want to know what your credit score is. So when you're walking in to meet with a lender, you want to look up your credit score. You want to know more about your credit score than they do, right? So make sure that you're keeping track of that. And there's lots of different monitoring systems out there that you can get access to for free. You can pull from the top 3 credit agencies. You can easily get an Experian report as an example. There's also all those different ones online, such as Credit Karma, Mint, that you can go in and check your credit score often as well. If you're going for a larger loan, you may also want to consider, do I have assets that can be used as collateral? So do you own your home, or are there vehicles or machinery or inventory that you may be able to put up as collateral in order to secure the loan? So I know that we've got the dual sides going on here, but just kind of think about this on your own. Where do you think most small businesses get their funding from? So usually when I ask this question, people's assumption is that most small businesses get their funding from bank financing. As you can see, that's a very low percentage of where particularly startup businesses are going to get their financing. When we're talking about expansion, this chart here changes a bit, but when you're first starting your business, 57% of businesses start with personal savings or credit cards or credit lines. From there, they may move into family and friends. This is the second most common option. And then you have those smaller areas like venture capital, crowdfunding, which we've heard a lot about in the news. I actually was really surprised when researching this, that crowdfunding actually doesn't supply as much money as it seems, right? Angel investors, and then again, bank financing. So again, most of that funding for startups is coming from personal savings or credit. So how do you produce money for the startup? So maybe as you're watching this, you're like, I don't have a ton of money to infuse in my business. And so there may be ways around it. And so first, start small. One of the big things that I see, particularly with people that are thinking about opening their own business, is they think really, really big. So as an example, even for myself, the very first business that I started, I wanted to open a clothing store, and I wanted this big, beautiful clothing store that was on the beach with all the bells and whistles and totally built out. But that was going to cost me several $100,000s in order to get there. I do not have that kind of money. My family does not have that kind of money. And so I had to rethink this idea. And so we started small. And so the way that we started was we started selling at street fairs and different events. We then moved to selling online and started doing online retailing. And then we finally generated enough money that we were able to get our 2,000 square foot storefront on the beach with all the inventory. And so for a lot of us, we're dreaming really big, but we may not have the financing to start that way. And so you can start a little bit smaller. So maybe you're someone who has, you want to have a restaurant. And so you can start a small business out of your kitchen and then start catering and then continue to move up to maybe a food truck or a food pod and then work your way into having that big, beautiful restaurant. And so these are ways to kind of start. The less money that you take on, so less debt that you take on from the very beginning, the better. So if you can start small and work your way up, that's going to be a great way of going as well. You can also start by running your business as a side gig or what we call a side hustle. So continue to work the job that you have and then do that one on evenings or weekends or however your schedule kind of plays out. You can also think about what assets you can sell or rent out. So this can be a type of business. So you have a spare room in your house. You can rent that out to somebody or Airbnb it. If you have, let's say, a spare vehicle, you might be able to rent that out. Or if you have, let's say, a truck or something like that, rent that out for somebody to be able to use for construction purposes or moving things. And so think about assets that you can sell or rent out, and this can be a way of generating cash. If you have things laying around the house that you're not using. I know my garage right now might be full of things that my husband will never use. And so that might be something for us to sell to start getting money for startup. You can also look into tapping into capital you already have. So of course, looking at checking and savings, tapping into friends and family. You can look at home equity. I know especially recently, a lot of the houses have gone way up. And so you may be sitting on a lot of equity that you might be able to tap into. Credit cards, most small businesses do start off of credit cards. And then there's also tapping into equity stock portfolios as well as retirement accounts. Of course, from anything from home equity down on this list, you really, really want to make sure that you have done solid research beforehand before tapping into those and generating that debt or putting home and retirement accounts. Tapping into those can be a little risky. So you just want to make sure that you've done a ton of research and that this is a really solid plan going forth in order to mitigate the risk. So another way to go about it is through what we call bootstrapping. So bootstrapping is a way of funding your business by making do with what you have or by being really creative and thrifty. To be quite honest, most small business owners are kind of forced to bootstrap on a daily basis because it seems that there's never enough money. So you always have to figure out how to make do. But some of the ways that you can look into this is by used equipment. So an unfortunate side effect from COVID is that there are quite a few small businesses that went under. Some of those businesses were brand new businesses that it was just an unfortunate poor timing for their business startup. And so there's going to be equipment out there that is barely used, that's essentially brand new, that you can buy for pennies on the dollar. And so this is something to definitely watch for. So what is an unfortunate event might be something that's great for you. You can lease equipment instead of purchasing. So when you're talking about, let's say you're in the construction realm and you need heavy equipment, those heavy pieces of machinery can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so if you don't have all of that money up front, it might be easier to lease the equipment rather than purchasing it outright. If you are, let's say, someone who's in like real estate and you really only need an office space once or twice a week to meet with clients or something along those lines, you can share office space with other businesses. And so you might be able to rotate days that you use the office, and this can cut down on your costs. I've also seen where multiple businesses will get inside of one building and they'll just kind of, section off for each of their businesses, and this way they can share the cost of rent. Excuse me. You can also coordinate your purchases with other businesses. And so this is where being part of a group like this and being able to network and communicate with one another, where this comes in really handy is most businesses are going to need things like office supplies. And if you purchase in bulk, then the price per item is going to go down. And so if you coordinate your purchases with other businesses, let's say things that you all have in common, like office supplies, you can really bring down your cost that way too. And then of course, you can always obtain payments from customers up front. And this way, if you are producing some kind of product, you have them pre-order it. And that way the cash isn't coming out of your pocket. You know exactly how much you need to produce. And that way there's no waste. Or if you are in, let's say, some kind of construction industry, you'll see this a lot where you take a portion of payment upfront, then progress payments, and then you'll take another third halfway through, and then the final payment when it's completed. You can also make do with what you have. Now, this is where getting really creative comes in. So to give you a couple examples of this, and I believe I've talked about this before in one of these presentations, when we did make the clothing store on the beach, it was a shell. It was just kind of a big concrete shell. There were no utilities, no anything in it. And so we had to bring in everything from all of the piping, the electrical, water, everything into the building. And this turned out to be a lot more expensive than we had originally planned. And so we didn't really have the money to purchase a whole bunch of clothing racks, especially wall racks. They can be really expensive. We were looking about $8,000 to $15,000. And so what we did was we used some of the excess construction materials. And we actually built clothing racks out of pipes and things of that nature, which saved us a whole bunch of money. One of my friends, they purchased a small boutique hotel, and her and her family actually lived in the hotel in order to cut costs until they were able to generate enough income where they were able to move out. And so these are ways that you might be able to bootstrap or make do with what you have. So let's talk about a little bit about debt versus equity. So there's debt financing. This is generally considered to be the cheapest way to go if you are going to do some type of financing. And this would be your traditional bank lenders. And it's great because you maintain control of your business, and then you pay back the debt with interest. And once you've paid that back, it's done. Your relationship with them can be over if you want, and you're good to go. There's also what's called equity financing. So this would be bringing on some type of investor. And so in exchange for money, you give them a % of ownership and potentially some control. It depends on what kind of contract you're setting up there. And so in this situation, they may have some control of the business. Again, depending on the contract, they may own a percentage of that business for the lifetime of the business unless otherwise written. And so you really want to consider how much control do you need, and what would you like that relationship to look like when you're considering things like debt versus equity. Another way to finance your business is if you are trying to purchase a business, you can do seller financing. And this is where the owner is willing to finance or hold the notes for you. And the seller may finance up to 100% of the loan, or you can do that in conjunction with a bank. So maybe they'll hold the note on 50%, and then you pull out a loan for the other 50%. This is great for people who may not be able to qualify for the entirety of the loan. So the seller is willing to kind of take that on for you. So you can do this with purchasing a business. You can also do this if you are trying to purchase some kind of property for your business. So that's maybe an option that you can talk to the seller about as well. As we mentioned in the beginning, friends and family is the second most common way to finance this startup. I do suggest if you go this route that you treat it just like you were contacting an investor. So you want to have a solid business plan in place. You want to put together financial projections. You want to have a pitch ready for them. And whatever you do with your friends or family, make sure that you get it in writing. Have it in a contract. One of the things that I always tell people is that contracts protect relationships. And so it makes sure that everybody's on the same page, everybody has the same expectation, and you want to lay out what they get in return. So how will this be structured? Are you paying them back? Is this a gift? Are they going to receive partial ownership? And so really have all of that laid out. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So really treat it just like you would with an outside investor, and that way you don't end up harming your personal relationships. And so make sure to get everything in writing so that everyone is on the same page and has the same expectation. For bank loans, as we mentioned, there's going to be a repayment schedule, so you're paying it monthly at a very specific interest rate. They're going to consider the cash flow of your business, what kind of collateral you can put up, and the liquidity of your assets. So how quickly you can cash those out if needed. They're looking for a written business plan, and you should know your financial situation inside and out, as well as that credit score. So how does the SBA play into all of this? So the SBA, one of the confusing parts is that the SBA does not lend money directly. The only time that we lend money directly is in cases of emergency or disaster. So kind of like you may have been seeing with the economic injury disaster loans or EIDL loans. That's the only time that the SBA is going to lend directly. Other than that, the SBA lends through third-party banks. And so what the SBA does is we guarantee the loan. And the reason why these programs were put into place is that they're there to help small businesses that may not traditionally qualify for regular bank loans or traditional bank loans. And so one of the factors is that you must be able to prove that you aren't able to obtain credit elsewhere or able to obtain the amount that you need elsewhere. And so the SBA, depending on the type of loan, can back up to 90% of the loan. So it's anywhere from 50 to 90% of the loan. So we tell the lender, hey, if for some reason this loan defaults, we'll pay you back a large percentage of the money. And the reason why this is great is that it mitigates the lender's perceived risk, and more small businesses are able to be funded and get started. It does still require the 6 C's, which we're going to touch on in just a little bit, but their credit, collateral, character, commitments, cash flow, and conditions. And like I said, we'll get into a little bit more detail here in just a bit. So there are still some requirements that people have to meet, but the credit score can be a lot lower. The cash infusion into the business can be a lot lower. Collateral requirements are a lot lower. And so again, this opens the door for a lot of small businesses to be funded that traditionally would not have. So when you are considering things like SBA loans, you can use them for a variety of purposes. So in a lot of cases, those SBA loan guarantee programs are really flexible. So you can use them to start your business, to grow your business, export your goods and services, recover from disaster, like we were talking about with EIDL. You can access a maximum of $5 million in SBA guaranteed financing. You can pull out multiple loans. So let's say that you pull out $100,000 loans to start your food truck. Your food truck's doing great. You're ready to buy and expand another food truck or maybe a permanent location. And so you pull out another 100,000. You can continue to do that as long as you show the cash flow to be able to make those payments. So what can it not be used for? So there are certain types of businesses that are not eligible for SBA financing. So this includes any type of gambling or speculation, any type of real estate investment or other speculative activities. This includes building spec homes or being part of that type of development. Lending activities, so you can't borrow money to lend money, multi-level marketing firms, businesses that are providing any sexual material or content, religious organizations, and nonprofit organizations or charitable organizations. So those three can be funded for disaster loans, but for our traditional loan guarantee programs, those three are not eligible. Illegal activities. So even though marijuana, as an example, is legal in many states, it's still federally illegal. And so the SBA is not able to finance anything that has to do with the cannabis industry. And then the bottom one, borrowers that have defaulted on federal loans or financing. So you can become ineligible if, let's say, you've defaulted on a federal student loan or a federal mortgage, so an FHA mortgage. If you have not been paying things like child support payments, those can create issues and make you ineligible for SBA financing. So let's talk a little bit about the type of loans that SBA does have. So we do have microloans. So these are loans that are administered by nonprofits lenders. And these are anywhere from $500 to $50,000. The average right now is about $14,000 that people pull out. They have less stringent credit requirements, and they also do have some technical assistance. So they can help you with some business advising. They can help you with the application. So these can be really great. This is super great for people who don't have any credit or are trying to rebuild their credit. And so this can be a great place for you to start. Our micro lenders here in Oregon are fantastic. And so this can be a really great place if you're trying to rebuild that credit so you can build up to getting a larger loan or getting that larger financing. 7A loans. These are loans of up to $5 million. This is probably our most common and flexible loan. And you can use it for rents, operating expenses, working capital. You can use it to purchase equipment. So you can use it for all sorts of different things. You can also, if you're in need of funding really fast, you can look for a 7A Express loan, which has a maximum of $350,000 and can be funded in less than 36 hours. And so this can be a really quick turnaround time. For 7A Express loans, these are going to be administered by what we call our preferred lender program. So essentially, these are lenders that have been doing SBA guaranteed loans for a really long time. We trust that they will make the correct decision. And so it doesn't have to go from you to the lender to the SBA back to the lender. Instead, they can decision it right then and there, which is why it goes so much faster. There's also 504 loans. So these are basically long-term, almost mortgage-like loans. So you can use them as a mortgage to purchase land or buildings or to build buildings. You can also use them to purchase things like machinery. And these loans can be extended out for 30 years and they have consistent repayment. So there's not going to be any balloon payments or anything of that nature involved in something like a 504 loan. You can get more information. I did send this PowerPoint directly to Gustavo. So all of the links on here, you can have access to them and go directly to the information on each of these. So use of funds, I know I kind of touched on some of this, but you can use it to purchase a building, fixtures and real estate, working capital for inventory, working capital for short-term or seasonal. So maybe your business only runs during the summer and you're closed during the winter. So beginning of summer, you can do a short-term loan for you to be able to cover your expenses during the summer and really ramp up for summer sales. In some situations, you can use something like a 7A loan to refinance business debt. You can purchase equipment with it. You can use it for startup costs. You cannot use it to return equity to an owner, and you cannot use it to pay delinquent payroll taxes. There's a really great tool if you're interested in learning more about SBA loans, or if you feel like you're ready to start talking to lenders right now. If you go onto sba.gov/lender match, you can just put in your needs. So describe what it is you're looking for, how much money, what type of loan you're considering. And then within about 2 days or so, lenders that are interested in working with you will reach out to you via email. Then you can start talking to lenders. I highly recommend that you reach out to several. I do have a 7A lender list. If anyone is interested in that, I can share that with Gustavo. It covers all of Oregon and the southern parts of Washington. So all the SBA participating 7A lenders are on there. But I highly recommend shopping around. So even though the SBA has laid out certain requirements, each lender has some wiggle room of what they're able to fund, what their interest rates are going to be, what their guarantee fees, those upfront fees we were talking about are going to be. And so shop around to see which one might be best for you. This is also going to be a long-term relationship. So make sure that you feel that this is a good match for you, because as much as you think that they're, basically filtering you, you also want to make sure that you're filtering through them as well of who's going to be the best match for you and your business, right? And then you can go through and apply for the loan. So what do you need to know about what the lenders are looking for? First, you want to prepare to obtain financing before you need it. So one of the things that I've seen for businesses that maybe are seasonal or may be going through a little bit of a struggle is they wait far too long to apply for funding. And then they don't get it when they need it, or they might not be able to access it. And so make sure that you're thinking down the road and thinking ahead of, okay, we're going to start in summer, so I'm going to apply for this loan 4 months early to make sure that we have it so that we're ready to get ready for summer if you're a seasonal business, right? So make sure that you're planning ahead. What you're going to need when you're preparing a package for lending is you are going to need to have a solid business plan. And I know Gustavo was telling me that they've been running kind of business plan classes, so that's great to jump on board with. You'll want supporting documents. So if you are just now starting your business, then you'll want 3 years of personal taxes. If you've already had your business going, then you want to have those business taxes ready. You want to have a current personal financial statement, or if you already have a business, you want to have those business financial statements ready, so cash flow, things of that nature. You want to have a resume, and the reason you want a resume is they want to see that you have experience in this type of industry or experience in managing, and so they want to make sure that you and your team are able to run this business. And then you want to include any research or evidence that your approach is valid and has a high chance of success. And so this will be kind of included in that business plan as well. When you're meeting the lender, you want to dress appropriately. You want to understand your business and your business plan. I know some people have kind of fallen into this trap almost, for lack of a better term, where they'll have someone else write their business plan for them, and then they'll go to meet with the lender, and the lender will start asking them questions about the business plan, and because they didn't actually write it themselves or they didn't do the research, they don't have a solid understanding of their business or the financials that are in the business, and so they're not able to answer those questions. This can be a red flag for a lender. I know I mentioned in the beginning, you want to know down to the penny how much money your business needs. Another major red flag for a business or for a lender, excuse me, is if you walk in and the lender says, how much money do you need? And your response is, how much money can I get? Right? So this is a huge red flag that you haven't done enough research. So you want to make sure that you are understanding your business plan and what's in there. You want to be positive and confident, be succinct and enthusiastic. You want to answer the negatives with a positive. So there's no such thing as a perfect business where it's just this utopian dream with no hiccups, no speed bumps, no risk. And so you want to make sure that you address those. What is a risk for this business, and how will you do your best to mitigate that risk? And so you want to be on top of, what they might say, well, this business seems risky because of insert whatever situation, right? And so you want to already have an answer prepared for that. And then you want to document your meeting interactions with notes so that you can go back to those a little bit later. So what goes into the business plan, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this. As I mentioned, I know Gustavo and his team are already working on this, but this is just kind of a basic business plan here, a little outline here. One thing I will tell you, lenders, the first things that they're going to look at is they're going to first look at the executive summary. So this is the summary of what your business is and what you plan to do, and highlights of your financials, or highlights of achievements for your business. So they're going to look there first to see if they're even interested in this type of business. They'll then flip to the financials to see, how this business is projected to do over the next few years, if there is success, if they look solid, if they look reasonable, all those numbers. And then they go down to the management. Do you and your team have what it takes to run this business? And so that's what they're going to look at first. So keep that in mind as well when you're writing your business plan. So for financials, they're looking for balance sheets, income statements, cash flows. And so you want to make sure that those are really solid. For established businesses, you want to bring the last 3 to 5 years of performance with you so they can see how your business has done over the last 3 to 5 years, and kind of what your trends are looking like. For pro forma data, so this is projections. So if you're a newer business, these are used to show anticipated financial performance. Again, they're looking to see that they are credible, that they're realistic, and that they're, what's the word I'm looking for? Consistent. So that they're consistent from page to page, that they're consistent throughout your business plan. And so we're looking at 2 to 3 years with monthly projections for the first 12 months. So how are your sales going to be? Is there ever going to be a time where sales decrease? What are your costs? How much are your margins? And so these are all things that they're going to be looking at. So when we were talking about those 6 C's, so they're looking at capacity. So do you have the capacity to repay? What's your history look like? Do you have the money, a cash flow to be able to pay that? So does the business have the cash flow to be able to make those payments? They're also looking at your capital infusion and how much cash you have. So how much are you investing into the company yourself? As I mentioned before, it's a lot easier to gamble or make risky decisions when using someone else's money than when your money is on the line. And so they want to see that you have that going for you. They're going to look at your collateral. Again, this depends on the size of the loan and the type of the loan. And sometimes, let's say you're pulling out a 7A loan to purchase inventory for your business. That inventory, in a lot of cases, acts as the collateral. And so they're looking to see what kind of collateral you have. They're looking at your character. So this goes back to what we were talking about before. They're looking at the reputation of your business. They're looking to make sure that you are paying your debts, that you don't owe things like back child support. So they're looking at your overall character. They're also looking at your credit score to make sure that that's is good and that you're making your repayments, and then conditions. So they are looking at the environment. What's going on in the world right now? Is this business a safe plan? I can tell you, gosh, I don't remember how long ago. It was probably about 10 to 15 years ago that restaurants were a little uneasy, and there was a bunch of lenders that were, it's too dicey right now, it's too risky, we're not going to lend to restaurants. And so this might be another reason to shop around. Some lenders may be more apt to finance a business like yours, where others might be straying away from it. Conditions might also include what's going on with COVID. Right now, opening a restaurant might be a little risky to lenders. And so because if we have another outbreak, they may need to shut them down again. And so these are things to kind of consider as well. So what will the lender ask you? We touched on this. How much do you need? So you want to know that down to the penny. How will you use the loan proceeds? So what are you going to be purchasing with them? This will also, especially if you're talking to an SBA lender, this will kind of determine what kind of loan that they'll suggest for you, depending on how you're planning on using the money. What collateral do you have? How much are you investing in the business? And so those are all things that they may ask you. Factors that kind of determine whether or not you might be able to be funded. So most viable is going to have experienced management, high debt service cash flow. They're going to have great credits, fully collateralized. They're in a mature industry and have high retained earnings. So these are going to be your traditional lenders. They're going to qualify or most likely qualify for traditional lending. With SBA lending, so cash flows with longer terms, covers reasonable collateral, may not be very great. They may not have a lot of cash to infuse, and so, or they may have newer credit, and so this would be where SBA comes in. For at least viable options, no management experience or no experience within the industry itself, impractical business ideas, no financial reserves, so no cash flow, no cash infusion, and bad credit. And so there may not be a loan out there for them just yet. However, this may be where you start talking to some of those micro lenders. It may not be an SBA program, but they may be able to start you. I know, as an example, some of our micro lenders in Oregon had a program where they did a loan for $100. And then the person made payments on that every month, and this was able to start building that credit and build that credit score. And so eventually they would be able to qualify for larger loans. Here are some of the fees that are going to be involved with SBA financing. And so there's always going to be a guaranteed portion of the loan. And so generally these are going to be 2 to 3.75% of the overall loan. There's also going to be the prime guarantee or plus prime. So those are listed there as well. And you'll see there's different ones for different loans going through here. There's also, if you happen to be a veteran as of March 2020, there's no guarantee fee for veterans on Veteran Express loans, just in case that applies to anybody in here. So just as a quick recap, in order to get your lending package together, you want to have a business plan. You want to know exactly how much capital you need and what you're going to use it for. Make sure that you check your credit history, make sure that it's accurate. You want to fight any things that are not accurate to kind of clean up that credit report before seeking any lending. Have your financial projections set out and solid and realistic and consistent. Think of any collateral you may be able to put up. And then really think about and list out your industry experience, your management experience, education, skills, those sort of things to make that come across really strong. So what happens if you are rejected for a loan? Why is it? There we go. You want to ask why and ask for it in writing. Lenders have to respond to you and give you a reasonable explanation for why. And this can help you to fix that in the future. So if you find out exactly why, then you can start working from there. So can it be corrected? Will all lenders have the same issues? So as I mentioned, it may just be, hey, we're not financing that type of business right now. And so you can shop around to other lenders. And then will alternative financing sources mitigate the issues identified? So can you seek out SBA lending? Can you go to a micro lender? Can you take on an investment from friends or family. And so are there other ways to go about it? Can you do seller financing? So maybe you don't qualify for 100,000, but you could qualify for 50,000. And so look to see if there's other alternate financing that you might be able to do. What's great about the SBA too is we have a ton of resource partners. So we have direct resource partners. There's actually over 1,400 of them across the United States. So this includes SCORE, which are volunteer, SBDCs or small business development centers, the Women's Business Center, and they are able to help you with low cost or no cost workshops. They do have no cost one-on-one counseling. They can help you with your business plan, your financials. For example, SBDC has a capital access team that can help you to find capital and financing. And they don't just focus on SBA lending either. So they can figure out what might be best options for you and your business. And so you can contact any of those. You can contact them via sba.gov/local assistance. And so that can be a way to find them, or I do have them linked here. So the key takeaways here are plan for future growth. Small business capital can come from a variety of different forms. You want to know the difference between debt and equity financing. So how much control do you need? How long of terms do you need? And understand exactly how much money you need. Consider SBA loan programs that provide financial assistance for a variety of business needs. And then you can reach out to the SBA or our resource partners if you need any help. So with that, that kind of concludes my portion here. Does anyone have any questions that I might be able to answer for you?
I have a question for you, Ashley.
Sure.
Or Elsie. So if someone were to expand their business, several of the people on our call today have businesses already and they may be looking to expand, what's a good percentage of capital in to qualify for a good loan that would get a decent rate through an SBA lender? So for example, somebody would needed $100,000. How much should they have as an investment in for the bank to look favorably on them in providing a loan?
So if they've already been in business, as long as they can show how much they've infused, usually about 10 to 20% is what they're looking at. And so 10 would be kind of the average, but 20, depending on their situation, would work as well. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions for me?
Oh, I am mute. Any question for Ashley?
Where can we monitor
Tengo
personal?
una pregunta. Mi nombre es Leticia Bárcenas. Yo me dedico al cuidado
Hola, Leticia.
infantil. Excelente presentación, muchas gracias. Me quedó más claro lo que es el CBA, porque hace 2 años, 1 año, hablaban de eso y nunca entendí nada. A lo mejor no me puse a estudiar, no nos daban mucha información, pero yo veía que mucha gente estaba aplicando, solicitando, y no, me quedé hasta ahí, pero ahora ya lo entiendo mucho mejor. Muchísimas gracias a Gustavo y a todos los que nos están apoyando. En mi caso mi negocio es de servicio, es un cuidado infantil y tengo varias colegas. ¿Cuál es el más, cómo se dice? Ok, primera pregunta, ¿el ITIN y el Seguro Social es equitativo para ti? Me refiero a que es igual, entramos por igual o hay diferencia. ¿Cuál es alguno de los puntos que a veces como cuidadoras infantiles que queremos abrir un negocio, expandir, nos tropezamos?
Okay, so the ITIN and Social Security are basically the same. So as long as you can basically prove the citizenship, then it's the same to them. As far as points to consider, if you're looking to expand, it depends on exactly what you're trying to do when you say expand. So most likely what you would be looking at in this situation would be a 7A loan, because it sounds like your expansion would be either expanding the current location you already have or purchasing a new one. Does that sound about right?
Sí, correcto. Muchísimas gracias por más aclarar mi pregunta a cuál tipo de préstamo entraría la expansión y sería otro.
So, okay, so for location, so there's two ways to look at this. This is what I was trying to kind of clarify here is if you just need the physical location, then a 504 loan would work. But let's say that you're moving into a new location and now you're going to have more kids, so you need more teachers and more equipment, then you would be looking at the 7A loan because the 7A loan comes with working capital. So for those overhead expenses that you might have, and for labor and things like that, you can use a 7A loan, where the 504 is just for the physical location, if that makes sense.
Okay, we have other question from Citlali. Where can we monitor personal credit?
So you can go directly to the 3 credit reporting agencies and request a copy of your credit score. There's also a whole bunch of them online that you can do for free as well. So freecreditreport.com, Credit Karma, Mint is a personal favorite. And so you have all of these different options. So with Experian, I believe you get one free one a year. Where with the other ones, you can kind of check in and log those often. I do Credit Karma personally and check that pretty often.
Okay, one more, una más.
Cuando hablaste del puntaje de crédito, nos diste muchas esperanzas, ya sea que no tengas crédito, que tengas tu crédito más o menos o bueno. Pero nos diste muchas esperanzas a muchos de nosotros que no sabemos manejar ese tipo de situación, pero aquí con la Cámara de Comercio, con Ivette Falconi, nos estamos un poco asesorando.
Awesome.
Cuando uno tiene más o menos, dijiste el crédito, puedes usar un colateral y no necesariamente como uno como empresa puedes generar puntos de crédito con otras situaciones que no sean bancos.
If it's as I'm not sure that I'm fully understanding the question as far as for the business, you can start doing business and credit, and actually Rob dropped this in the chat box as well. So you can have a listing with Dun & Bradstreet to start building business credit as you're taking on credit cards specifically for your business. But basically with credits, it's never a quick fix. It always takes time, but it involves having a variety of credit. So, you know, credit cards, car loans, home loans, you know, traditional bank loans. So all of those are kind of factored in as it goes through, and making sure that you're, you know, having a history of good payments. Like I said, if you have not so great credit, you can reach out to those micro lenders. It sounds like you are working with somebody already, but if you reach out to some of those micro lenders, they can start to help you build credit with small loans. I know that I've seen them as low as $100, and they can help you start to build that credit by showing those payments. And like I said, it won't be a quick fix, but it's doable.
Sí, muchas gracias.
Okay, The time is over, but Ashley, thank you for your presentation. It was amazing. I love it.
Thank you guys. Well, thank you guys for having me. I love working with you all. So thank you again for a really fun, excellent presentation. Rob, it was great meeting you today. Jessica, thank you for your translations, and have a wonderful day, everyone.